This is how we ride. This is how we do.
You have a pretty good schedule here. You kind of threw everybody for a loop with there's like, oh, they only announced 2. They must have dropped a race, and then they see the top there with Thunderbolt. Obviously there was a lot of hits with the new Outlaw schedule on the West Coast. Did this decision happen prior to that choice for them to not do a swing? Was this originally planned to be in somewhere in that vicinity with the Outlaws around? Or was this kind of like a reaction to them not having a West Coast big 410 race, and y'all put that on? How did this come about?
Yeah, that's the latter of the two there. It's obviously, we didn't have any intention of going out west. Didn't think it was feasible or possible. Didn't want to, try to put that on teams. There was already races out here, in the spring, and then, if the Outlaws not coming out here, and Kyle and I love Tulare.
It's a great racetrack. It's where I honestly think that track is why the West Coast drivers can do so much damage. Because to qualify at Trophy Cup, you have to be willing to destroy your car. You have to be willing to put it on its lid. It is insane what happens in 1 and 2 at that track.
Yeah, we just love it. I mean, Kyle and I we just basically are trying to help 410 racing out here. We got Silver Dollar. We're running the Mini Gold Cup in March to try to help, and then the high limit race at Tulare. Trying to get these 410 guys out here. It was a big hit for those teams and these racetracks out here when the Outlaws kind of went the other direction. I understand why they did. I mean, I think there's a lot of pressure from teams. Not myself personally. I love the spring California swing. I'm home an extra month out of the year, so I was disappointed. I don't. The weather in Pennsylvania is more risky than in California, in my opinion. But, so the opportunity was there, right? I mean, we can do a race in March. Obviously, there's a lot of cars out here, a lot of great drivers. We're hopeful that, some outside invaders will get rides out here, kind of like Trophy Cup, and it'll create like some compelling, different looking show. And I think it's a good test for us to kind of, go in our own direction and get away from, the other schedule and do a race and kind of see how it goes. So you can't pass up a Tulare race on a Tuesday night for 23,000. I think it's a probably one of the best things that we did there.
Yeah, definitely. And then the schedule kind of moves to Lakeside, and honestly, in Brian Carter's defense and the Outlaws' defense, this is where I kind of did see where they're worried. I think this is kind of what they're worried about, because the Outlaws are at 81 prior to that race at Lakeside, which is obviously in Kansas, a couple hours apart still, yes. And then the next week, I believe the Outlaws are at I-55. This race is right there on a Tuesday leading out of 81. If you're a fan and you're only going to go to one race weekend, you're more than likely going to go to Lakeside because you're going to get the Outlaws and Kyle Larson. If he doesn't put a lock on something to where people who may only want to go one night, if they want to see the Outlaws, they got to go to 81. In the dream scenario, they don't have to anymore. They just wait till Tuesday and they get the Outlaws plus,
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with some of that stuff, and I, obviously don't want to hurt promoters. I try to be as fair as I could, thinking about the schedule. I always try to go, after an event. So, you hope that people, choose, and we're in the weekday, but it's just the bigger picture here is trying to get, to elevate, to keep pressure on this purse and this business model and make sure the drivers, have a chance to race for the big money. So, they have to react to this. I mean, that's their reaction right now. In a year's time, do all the purses get raised up and there's back to full exclusivity? I don't know. I mean, the whole point is to try to drive it up and, keep pressure on the situation. It's, at the end of the day, there might be some small or some short-term losses, but the whole goal is to look at the long-term, viability here and try to make some gains.
Yeah, definitely. When you had that first 3 hit, the Lakeside 34 Kokomo, I did see an interesting comment. I believe it was by everyone's favorite person, Danny Dietrich. Yes, here it is. He says, I've never seen a series piggyback so bad? I'm very interested to see some of the repercussions as the seasons go. Was it that the mission statement, though? I mean, what he's saying here is basically the mission statement was to give these top teams, while they're on the road, opportunities to make more money while they're going down the road. What is your response to those out there, like a Danny Dietrich, obviously, who's saying that it's just a piggyback series?
Honestly, I don't really get too worried about comments or concerns. I listen to concerns, yes, but just comments, of people that have never been in our situations, or Danny's a great racer.
And character. We need characters like that to say what they think. I mean, it is. Let them disagree, agree, whatever.
Yeah, let him say what he wants to say. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not like I'm gonna go fight Danny Dietrich over it. I mean,
don't have a Raymer situation. Whatever you do, I mean,
do I look at Danny any different than I ever have? No. Is there guys that are shaking their head at our series? Yeah. Is there fans that disagree? Yeah. But the big picture, not everybody's always going to agree on everything. What we're trying to do is a little controversial. Is putting pressure on the situation. Danny probably was looking at this. Maybe he wanted to come to more of these races, the bigger paying races, and it's probably a little too much travel for Danny.
I was about to say he's probably he's like Lance. He's the old man on the porch yelling at everybody across the yard. Is that what you're saying?
Well, and I think Danny Pennsylvania's perfect for Danny. It's him and a couple crew guys, and they get to the track late, and they're scrambling because they've been working all day, and he makes a living racing. He puts on a show. He talks a little shit. It's all good. There's no hard feelings that people aren't gonna agree with what we're doing. But when you've been out on the Outlaw Tour and you want to you're trying to elevate it, and you're listening to the owners, and you're listening to the drivers because you're one of them, and you're part of this group, and then the opportunity presents itself where you can help elevate it. Kyle Larson's your brother-in-law and calls you and says, what do you think about this idea? And you sit and you really think about it, and the opportunity with Flo's sitting right in front of you. I mean, it was honestly a really hard thing to want to pass up. I mean,
back to his comments, that's the mission statement. It is meant to be along the way.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it's you're driving from point A to point B, and in between you get to stop. Instead of you're just staying the night and buying a hotel room, you're stopping and you're racing for $23,000 to win and $1,500 to start. I mean, these are real. These are legit purses that we put together. We wouldn't do this if we thought it was something that wasn't legit and real and a gain for everybody. Obviously, we can't look at it exactly from the World of Outlaws brand point of view. We're fighting, to gain, and so there's going to be a little bit of hurt feelings, but it's all business. It's not meant to be like a personal, fight that we're sitting here trying to have. We're looking at making business decisions that are going to be beneficial for, the overall business of sprint car racing. And that's to gain, to maybe change the business model a little bit, maybe to acknowledge the pay-per-view, that there is an audience during the middle of the week watching these races. It's part of it, and it's here to stay. It's just the way it's going to be.
Well, I know that, like I said, that was a part of the mission statement, and another part of the mission statement, which I think is here but isn't here on the schedule, is it was like to bring sprint cars to, and I'm paraphrasing here, to bring sprint cars to places that maybe don't get to see 410 winged sprint car racing. I mean, obviously, I think the biggest hit on this, as far as good, was Eagle. I mean, it's amazing racetrack. Home of Kyle Larson's first World Outlaw win. It's a great racetrack. It hasn't had 410s in, I think, since that race or the year after, one of the two. So that's a big one that kind of nails the mission statement for sure. But these others, these are kind of pretty, I mean, outside of Grandview, obviously they have their 410 winged racing over there. But some of these others are just traditional kind of, I guess along the path, but not necessarily a random place that is getting a hit for the first time of 410 winged racing. It just seems like what happened there was it just collaboration? Was it just trying to make sure you hit a home run when you get to these places and you don't lose money? Didn't want to take too much risk. What was the thing behind, scheduling that, like a Lernerville and a Grandview and a Bridgeport has so many 410 winged races. I mean, Lincoln Park and Kokomo, you can kind of see it in there. It's non-wing world mainly. But 34 has their races. Lakeside has an outlaw race this year. Tri-City, I believe, has an outlaw race. Houston's obviously does as well. What was the thought process or the situation to where some people were expecting a Marshalltown, or some people, I was hoping Deer Creek, or some of these places that don't have wing 410 racing at all really hit their track? We just didn't get that. What was the process there?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it's very valid. I mean, there's a lot of logistics. It was probably the hardest logistical thing I've ever put together is the schedule. We looked at tracks that don't have outlaw races that are, for one, you need a safe track. For two, we don't want to go down the path of not having a crowd. That's a bad look for everybody. It's not good for the promoter. It's not good for our series. And so we looked at places we thought we could get crowds, year one. It had to fit along the lines of what was out there, because that's what we told the teams. You're not going to go way off the beaten path. You're going to be able to pick these races up, easily. So logistics, safe racetrack, tracks that we know could race and produce great racing for fans, because that's what High Limits is about, is trying to find, the Eagles and the Kokomos and, the Putnamvilles. And, Kokomo doesn't have a lot of wing 410 racing. Putnamville doesn't have much wing 410 racing. Grandview doesn't have an outlaw race. Bridgeport lost their outlaw race. Tulare lost their outlaw race. Lakeside, that was a tough one, but you needed a venue that could handle a 50,000 to win show. Lernerville doesn't have an outlaw race. Obviously, that's a place that, is one of the best tracks in the country that should be showcasing the best drivers. That was a no-brainer to go there for 50,000 to win. Granite City, Illinois, right on the way. We go from Lawrenceburg all the way up to Grand Forks. It's a long drive. To pick that up on a Wednesday night, and it ties into the NASCAR crowd. The NASCAR races in St. Louis on the
Gateway.
Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, there's a lot of logistics to put this thing together. And then, you get towards the end, and 34 Raceway, coming out of Knoxville on a Tuesday night. It has an outlaw race, but there's not a lot of venues that you can go to in that area where we still want to have the crowd. So we thought that track produces good racing. There'll be a lot of cars out in that area, and we only put 1/2 mile on. We wanted to stay on the shorter tracks. Obviously, Eagle, no brainer, like you said. Houston, tying into Jackson. We think it helps the Jackson Nationals with, cars staying around after the Knoxville Nationals. It helps Todd up at Jackson to potentially create a more compelling Jackson Nationals. So $23,000 on a Tuesday night. Everybody's going to be in that area after Knoxville heading to Jackson Nationals anyway. So it's an extra show for everybody.
This last year, that's where I had my issue, where y'all had the Lincoln Park directly after Knoxville that kind of detoured them. So this is bringing them back in a way.
Yeah, it's bringing it back. And it's also, last year we knew we did, everybody was under contract. We knew that we weren't going to have a chance to get, those drivers. So, I think overall, his schedule's really, really good. I think it checked all the boxes. Will we grow from here? Will we change tracks? We're worried about the inaugural year, put on some good racing this year. High Limits is going to do some cool stuff. We're super passionate, super excited. We really don't want to hurt anybody. We don't want a lot of hate. We know we're going to get a little along the way, and we're going to get some disgruntled people and some old traditionalists and some, the old boys club is maybe getting broke up a little here and there. But at the end of the day, it's all business. It's all, basically what we're trying to do is elevate the sport. We love sprint car racing. Kyle Larson didn't have to do this for sprint car racing. He could have went many directions with his likeness and his ability to draw a crowd. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's helping guys like me and David Gravel, Donnie Shots, and even Danny Dietrich.
Even Double D, man.
Even Double D is going to get to race more money this year.
And Freddie Raymer.
This is how we ride.